Imagine you are soaring through an infinite icy void. Absolute silence surrounds you. You are moving away from Earth at the speed of light. You fly for 1 second, and you are already at the moon. You fly for 8 minutes, and you pass the blazing surface of the sun. You think that's fast? No. In the scale of the universe, that is monstrously slow. To leave our galaxy, the Milky Way, you would need 100,000 years of continuous flight. 100,000 years of loneliness in the dark. But even that is just a tiny step onto the porch of our cosmic home. Now, imagine an object that is so huge that light, traveling at such unimaginable speed, needs 10 billion years just to cross it from one edge to the other. You heard that right? 10 billion years. That is more than half the age of the universe itself. It is thousands of times larger than the distance to our neighboring galaxies. It is something so colossal that the human brain simply refuses to comprehend such a scale. We look at star maps and think we understand how the world is built. But somewhere out there, in the depths of the Hercules and Corona Borealis constellations, a monster is hiding. A structure that makes astrophysicists nervously exchange glances and double-check their calculations. Because, according to all our knowledge of physics, according to all the laws of cosmic evolution, this object should not exist. Its existence is not just a mystery. It is a challenge to modern science. It is a paradox that whispers to us that we, perhaps, know absolutely nothing about how our world is actually structured. We fly into the void, and no one knows why. In a place where there should be a sparse scattering of galaxies, this wall stands, the Great Wall. Today, we will embark on the longest journey in the history of this channel. We will fall down a rabbit hole that leads to the boundaries of understanding. Today, we will learn 3 things that might keep you awake at night. First, what exactly is inside this giant structure, and why does it shine brighter than billions of suns? Second, why the very fact of its presence scares scientists and makes them doubt the Big Bang Theory in the form we know it. And third, what will happen when we understand the nature of this monster? Perhaps this is the key to understanding whether we live in a simulation or if the universe is much older than we are used to believing. But before we fly up to the wall itself, we need to understand how we even learned of its existence. After all, you can't just take a telescope, point it at the sky, and see something like this. It's not a planet, and it's not even a nebula. It is hidden behind a dense curtain of cosmic dust and unimaginable distances. The story of this discovery begins not with eyes, but with explosions. In the 70s of the last century, astronomers noticed something strange. In different corners of the universe, short but incredibly powerful flashes were occurring. Gamma-ray bursts. To give you a sense of the scale, in 1 single second, such a burst releases as much energy as our sun will produce in its entire lifetime. In 10 billion years, can you imagine that? Now, compress all that energy into a single instant. These are the brightest events in the universe since the Big Bang itself. These flashes are like lighthouses in a dark ocean. They are visible across the entire universe. And for a long time, it was believed that these beacons flashed chaotically, here and there, like faint sparks in a huge bonfire. But then began the era of big data. We started plotting these flashes on a map. 1 dot, another, a third, and suddenly, in the 2000s, researchers stumbled upon an anomaly. In the constellations of Hercules and Corona Borealis, these flashes were happening suspiciously often, too often to be a coincidence. It's as if you were looking at a night city from an airplane and saw that lights were burning evenly everywhere. But in one district, they merged into a solid, blinding spot. Astronomers realized These gamma-ray bursts are the deaths of massive stars. And if many stars are dying there, it means even more are being born there. It means a colossal amount of matter is accumulated there. That is how we first found the thread that led us to this giant. But let's take a step back. To understand why this Great Wall is so scary for science, we need to understand how our world is structured in general. In school, we are often shown a model of the solar system, planets gracefully flying around a star in even orbits. Then we are told that stars gather into galaxies, and galaxies into clusters. And many imagine the universe as a sort of bag of peas, where each pea is a galaxy, and they are simply scattered evenly through space. Fly wherever you want. Everywhere will be roughly the same. But this is a very strong oversimplification. In reality, the universe looks more like a web, or a giant sponge. Imagine bath foam. It has bubbles of emptiness, huge empty spaces that we call voids. There is almost nothing in them, darkness and cold. But the walls of these bubbles, the thin films and threads, that is where the galaxies live. They reach out to each other, slide along these threads of gravity, and merge into knots. We live in one of these knots. Our group of galaxies is called the local group. We are part of the Virgo supercluster, and the Virgo supercluster is part of an even larger structure, Laniakea. Sounds massive, right? Laniakea is our continent in the universe. It holds 100,000 galaxies. It is 500 million light-years in diameter. It seems like nothing could be bigger. 500 million years. Unthinkable. But even Laniakea is just a grain of sand compared to what we are talking about today. When astronomers started drawing a 3D map of the universe, they discovered the Sloan Great Wall. It was the record holder of the 2000s. A giant filament almost 1.5 billion light-years long. Back then, it seemed like the limit, that it was simply physically impossible to create anything larger. Why? Because the universe is only 13.5 billion years old. Gravity is a very slow force. It needs time to gather dust into rocks, rocks into planets, planets into stars, stars into galaxies, and galaxies into walls like this. The universe had limited time for construction, and building the Sloan Wall is like building a skyscraper in one day. Difficult, but theoretically possible if you try very hard. But what was found in 2013, the Hercules-Corona Borealis Great Wall, completely changes the rules of the game. Its size is 10 billion light-years. I will repeat that again so it burns into your memory. 10 billion. Remember, our entire universe is 13.8. This means this structure occupies a significant part of all observable history. If you look to the right, that is where it begins. Look to the left, that is where it ends. It hugs a significant part of the sky, and we didn't notice it only because it is too far away and too huge. It's like standing right up against a mountain. You see only the stone in front of your nose, but you don't realize it's part of Everest. How could liquid gravity assemble something like this in such a short time? Imagine you scattered a puzzle on the floor, and in a second, it assembled itself into a perfect picture. Impossible? That's what astronomers said. Impossible. But the gamma-ray burst data said otherwise. The wall is real. It is there. It is staring at us from the depths of time. And this is where our first critical point begins. You might ask, so what? Just a big pile of galaxies. Let it hang there. Aren't there enough strange things in the universe? It's not about records. It's not about whose wall is longer. It's about the fact that the existence of this object breaks the most fundamental principle on which all modern cosmology is built. It is called the cosmological principle. It sounds complex, but actually, it's simple. This principle states, The universe is homogeneous and isotropic. What does that mean? Imagine you are walking on a beach. You see grains of sand. They are different. One is white, another black, one bigger, another smaller. If you look with a magnifying glass, it's total chaos. But if you go up in a helicopter, the whole beach will look like a smooth yellow strip. You won't see individual grains or piles. Everything is the same everywhere. The beach is homogeneous. So, scientists always believed that the universe is just like that beach. Yes, there are stars, there are galaxies. But if you take a very large chunk of space, say 200 or 300 million light-years across, it will contain roughly the same amount of matter as any other chunk of the same size. It shouldn't be that one place is empty and another has a giant pile stretching across half the universe. This principle is our insurance policy. It allows us to think that the laws of physics we discovered here on Earth work everywhere, that our place in the universe is not unique, but perfectly ordinary. And then the Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall appears. 10 billion years. It crosses out this principle with a thick red marker. With the existence of such a structure, the universe no longer looks homogeneous. It looks lopsided, as if someone shoveled all the sand into one giant mountain. Scientists calculated that the maximum theoretical limit for any structure in the universe is 1.2 billion light-years. Remember that number, 1.2. Anything larger simply wouldn't have had time to form since the Big Bang. Gravity wouldn't have had time to pull in that much matter. And here we have 10. That is 8 times the limit. 8 times more than impossible. It's like if you went to the zoo and saw an elephant. You know elephants are big, but this elephant is the size of Everest. Your brain would refuse to believe it. You would say, it's a hologram, it's an optical illusion. And that is exactly what is happening in the scientific world right now. Many astronomers say, this cannot be. Your data is flawed. The gamma-ray bursts are deceiving you. The argument around this wall is fiercer than the arguments in the comments under a political video. Some scream that physics needs to be rewritten. Others, that observation methods need to be double-checked. But there is one detail that breaks all the logic of the defenders of the old theory. If this is just a coincidence, if it just so happened that the gamma-ray bursts lined up, then the probability of such a coincidence is less than the probability of a monkey accidentally typing "war and peace" by hitting a keyboard with its face. Mathematics tells us the wall is real. And if it is real, it means something is wrong with our universe. Either it is older than we think, or it grows differently than we think. Or, and here begins the most interesting part, we are approaching the moment where ordinary astronomy ends and a real nightmare for theorists begins. If we admit that this wall exists, we have to admit that we don't understand the most important thing, how order is born from chaos. Okay, let's slow down. Inhale. Exhale. We are standing before a giant. But what is inside it? What is the body of this Leviathan made of? Do you think it's just a lot of stars? No. Things are happening there that are hard to imagine. Imagine you are inside this cluster. The density of galaxies there is so high that at night on a planet inside this wall, the sky isn't black. It glows. Thousands, millions of galaxies are visible to the naked eye as huge glowing spirals. Worlds are constantly colliding there. Galaxies devour each other, merging in a single dance of death, spewing streams of superheated gas into space. That is precisely why there are so many gamma-ray bursts there. It is a war zone on a cosmic scale. It is the most active factory for producing stars and black holes in all of history. If we lived there, our astronomy would be completely different. We wouldn't see deep space because the light of neighboring galaxies would block everything out. We would think that the universe is this wall, and there is nothing else. And here arises a question that gives me goosebumps. What if we also live inside something similar, just even more grandiose? What if our entire visible universe is just a tiny bubble in a wall of an even larger scale that we can't even see? This is the thought that brings us to the equator of our journey. We've analyzed what this object is. We've understood why it shouldn't exist. But there is another problem. A problem related to how all this matter moves. Are you ready to learn about the dark flow? About the force that is pulling these galaxies somewhere beyond the limits of our visible world? We will talk about what lies beyond the wall itself, and why some scientists believe this is proof of the existence of a multiverse in just a couple of minutes. And believe me, this will change your idea of where we are. Now, we will take a small pause, so your brain has time to digest these numbers. 10 billion years. Visualize this every time you look at the stars. What you see is merely the wallpaper on the walls of our cell. And beyond the walls is the real, frightening, and magnificent cosmos. So, we stopped at the fact that the very existence of this wall is already an impossible event. But let's dig deeper. There is a phenomenon that might be connected to our giant, and it scares astronomers even more than just a cluster of galaxies. This phenomenon is called dark flow. Imagine you are floating on a boat on a calm lake. The water around is still, but suddenly you notice that not only you, but all the other boats, and even the debris on the water's surface, all of it is slowly but inevitably drifting in one direction. As if somewhere out there, over the horizon, there is a giant waterfall or a drain that is sucking in the entire lake. The same thing is happening in the universe. For a long time, we thought galaxies were flying apart in different directions only because of the expansion of the universe. But in 2008, a group of researchers discovered something strange. Huge clusters of galaxies, including our own, are rushing through space at a frantic speed, about 600 kilometers per second, in one specific direction. Where? Towards the constellations of Centaurus and Hydra. At first, everyone thought it was the Great Attractor. You've probably heard of it. It's a gravitational anomaly pulling us towards itself. But the problem is that the Great Attractor, for all its pompous name, is too weak to explain such global movement. To accelerate thousands of galaxies to such speeds, you need a mass billions of times greater than the mass of the attractor. Scientists looked further, beyond the attractor, and saw the Shapley supercluster there. It is even bigger, even more massive. But even its mass wasn't enough. And here we return to our Hercules-Corona Borealis Great Wall. Although the dark flow is directed slightly differently from our wall, the very fact of the presence of such monstrous structures tells us one thing. The universe is not a calm lake. It is a churning ocean with currents we cannot explain. There is a hypothesis that the dark flow is caused by the gravity of something located beyond the limits of our visible universe. Something so massive that even the Great Wall is a child's toy by comparison. We cannot see this something because light from there hasn't had time to reach us yet. But we feel it pulling us. Some physicists, for example, Alexander Kashlinsky, suggest that this might be the imprint of a neighboring universe. Imagine our world is a film, and nearby is another film, another universe. And in the place where they touch or come very close, gravitational pull arises. Sounds like science fiction? Maybe. But the Hercules-Corona Borealis Great Wall is a reality that makes such insane theories entirely plausible. Judge for yourself. If a structure 10 billion light-years long could form in our bubble, it means the early universe was nothing like what is written in textbooks. let's talk about why this is important for you personally. You're probably thinking, what difference does it make to me what's flying in the constellation of Hercules? The difference is that it calls into question our entire history. Official science relies on a model called lambda CDM. This is the Standard Model of Cosmology. It explains coolly how the universe cooled after the Big Bang, how the first atoms and stars appeared. But it has one fatal flaw. It has a rule built in: on large scales, the universe must be boring. Uniform. The Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall is a black swan. This single discovery says, guys, you were wrong. If we were wrong about this, then maybe we are wrong about the age of the universe? What if it's not 13.8 billion years old, but much older? After all, to build such a wall, gravity would have needed, well, let's say 20, 30, or maybe 40 billion years. And if the universe is older, then the Big Bang theory as the beginning of everything collapses. Perhaps the Big Bang was not the beginning, but merely another stage? Here, Nobel laureate Roger Penrose enters the stage. He proposed the theory of conformal cyclic cosmology. He believes that our universe is just one of countless aeons. There was a past universe, it expanded, died, and from its ashes, through a new Big Bang, ours was born. And do you know what the most interesting part is? Penrose believes we can find traces of that past universe in our sky. And giant structures like the Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall could be scars or echoes of past cycles. Imagine, you look at this wall of galaxies, and you see not just a cluster of stars. You see the ruins of a world that existed before us, before the beginning of time. It's like finding an ancient statue in a desert that is older than humanity itself. But let's return to scientific facts so we don't drift too far into esotericism. There is one more explanation that makes you feel uneasy. It's called cosmic strings. No, these aren't the strings quarks are made of in string theory. These are defects in space-time. Imagine you froze water in a bottle. Ice is rarely perfectly clear. It always has cracks, bubbles, streaks. These are crystallization defects. When the universe was born, it also went through a phase transition. It froze from a state of pure energy into matter. And in the process of this freezing, cracks could have formed. Giant cracks, the length of the entire universe, in the very fabric of reality. These cosmic strings possess colossal gravity. And if such a string passed where the constellation of Hercules is now, it could have become the framework onto which matter wound itself. Galaxies simply stuck to this invisible crack, like dust sticks to a wet spiderweb. If this is true, then the Great Wall is a scar on the body of space itself, proof that the birth of our world was painful and imperfect. So, we are now at the midpoint of our path. It's time to exhale and look around. We learned the wall is huge. We learned it breaks theory. We learned about dark flow and the scars of the universe. But let's ask ourselves a simple question. What does this look like from the point of view of an ordinary observer? Here we say, gamma-ray bursts. But do you understand what stands behind those words? Every gamma-ray burst in this wall is death. It is the moment when a giant star collapses into a black hole, emitting jets of pure radiation. If such a thing happened in our galaxy, a couple of thousand light-years away, our atmosphere would be destroyed instantly. The ozone layer would evaporate, and all life on Earth would perish. Now imagine a place where such explosions happen constantly. The Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall is a graveyard of stars, but at the same time, a maternity ward. And here begins part 4, the climax and the depth. We enter the zone where NASA pictures end and questions about meaning begin. If the cosmological principle is wrong, if the universe is not uniform, then it means we might have simply been lucky to end up in a quiet harbor. We live in a relatively empty corner. We don't have such monstrous clusters nearby. We don't have constant gamma storms. We live in the provinces, in a village. And precisely because we are in a village, we could evolve peacefully. If our Earth had ended up inside the Great Wall, perhaps life couldn't have arisen there at all. Too much radiation. Galaxies colliding too often. It's a paradox. The wall is the most matter-rich part of the universe, but most likely the deadest. And our void is poor, boring, but alive. But let's get back to mathematics, because it is exactly what turns a simply interesting picture into a real headache for physicists. Scientists call the problem with such structures by a beautiful term, the end of greatness. This term means the scale at which the universe should become smooth and boring. Previously, it was thought to be 100 or 200 million light-years. Then, the bar was raised to 300. With the discovery of the Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall, this scale broke completely. The end of greatness is nowhere to be seen. We see structures bigger and bigger. And this leads us to the thought of fractals. Do you know what a fractal is? It is a figure that repeats itself at any scale. Remember a snowflake. It has beams. Zoom in, and you see the beams have their own beams. Zoom in again, and there is the same pattern again. What if the universe is an infinite fractal? What if we keep discovering bigger and bigger walls? First clusters, then superclusters, then walls, then hyperwalls, then mega-complexes of hyperwalls, and so on to infinity. If this is true, then the universe has no end or edge not only in space, but also in complexity. We will never be able to write one formula describing everything because there will always be a structure of a higher level playing by its own rules. This scares many physicists. Physicists love simplicity. E equals mc squared. Everything brilliant is simple. But the Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall tells us, no, guys. The universe is a complex, dirty, chaotic, and unfathomable mess. And you are just little observers trying to measure the ocean with a teaspoon. And now, attention. I want you to visualize how this wall looks in 3D space. It is not a flat wall, like in a room. It looks more like a giant glowing network of neurons. Yes, exactly neurons. In 2020, a study was published comparing the structure of the cosmic web and the structure of the human brain. The resemblance turned out to be striking. Galaxies are the bodies of neurons. Gravitational filaments and walls, like our Hercules-Corona Wall, are axons, the connecting channels. Mathematically, these two structures, the brain and the universe, develop according to very similar laws. The Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall, in that case, is the most powerful nerve knot in the universe. Is it the main highway for information transfer? Or maybe a memory center? Of course, this is just a beautiful analogy. Galaxies don't think. Stars don't dream. But the very idea that we live inside a structure so complex that it resembles a biological brain makes you think. Could the universe be sentient? No, not in the sense of a grandfather on a cloud, but in the sense of a giant self-organizing system. And the Great Wall is a crucial part of this organism, a function we do not yet understand. Maybe gamma-ray bursts are nerve impulses? Right now, this sounds like the ravings of a madman. But remember, 100 years ago, black holes were considered nonsense. 500 years ago, the idea that the Earth is round and spins was considered nonsense. Every time we stumble upon something impossible, it turns out to be a door to a new level of understanding. Let's briefly summarize where we are right now. We have an object that is bigger than the age of the universe allows. We have a stream of galaxies rushing into the unknown, and we have the resemblance of the universe to a brain. All this together paints a picture of a world much stranger than any science fiction. We are not just dust. We are part of something colossal. There is one more detail about the wall that is rarely mentioned: its shape. We call it a wall, but it's not a flat brickwork. If you look at a 3D model, it looks more like foam. Filaments of galaxies intertwine, creating knots and loops. And this complex geometry leads to the thought of how exactly it was born. After all, for such a behemoth to assemble, its different parts need to somehow agree with each other. And here we run into another paradox: the horizon problem. Look, if the wall is 10 billion light-years long, it means information from one end to the other takes 10 billion years to travel. But the universe is only 13.8. This means that in the entire existence of the world, one edge of the wall barely had time to send a hello to the other edge. They simply didn't have time to interact gravitationally. Do you understand the horror? To build a house, workers must talk to each other. Hey, put a brick here. Hey, pour concrete there. Gravity is the voice of the workers. But in the case of the wall, workers at different ends of the construction site don't hear each other. The signal hasn't arrived yet. But the house is built. The wall stands. How? How did matter know where to fly if it didn't receive commands? This leads some scientists to assume that this structure was laid down even before the universe began to expand. During inflation. This is the very first fraction of a second after the birth of the world, when space inflated faster than the speed of light. Perhaps tiny quantum fluctuations, microscopic ripples in the newborn universe, were instantly stretched to giant sizes, and what was an atom became a wall of galaxies. If this is so, then the Hercules-Corona Borealis wall is literally a magnified photograph of the quantum world. We look at the macrocosm, but we see the microcosm. But let's return to science. To what other proofs of this wall's reality exist besides gamma-ray bursts? After all, skeptics can still say, well, gamma-ray bursts are circumstantial. There is another way to see the invisible. Cosmic microwave background radiation, or CMB. This is the oldest light in the universe, the echo of the Big Bang. It fills all space with a uniform background. But if something very large and heavy meets this ancient light on its way, it leaves a trace, a shadow. The gravity of a huge galaxy cluster slightly bends this light, changes its temperature. This is called the Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect. So, astronomers started looking for traces of the wall in the CMB. And the data is very contradictory so far. Some see this shadow, some don't. This is normal for the cutting edge of science. We work at the limit of our instruments' capabilities. But every year there is more data. And every year the wall becomes more and more real. And now let's talk about the future. Not the future of humanity, but the future of the wall itself. What will happen to it next? The universe is expanding. And not just expanding, but accelerating. Dark energy pushes everything apart. Can the wall's gravity hold it together? Or will it fall apart? Calculations show that even such a mighty structure is doomed. Dark energy will win. In billions of years, the filaments will tear. Galaxies will lose connection with each other. The wall will dissolve into the void. Greatness is not eternal. Even what seems to us now the most huge and unshakable is just a temporary phenomenon. A moment in the life of the cosmos. We live in a unique time. We manage to appear exactly when this wall still exists, and when we can already see it. If we had been born 10 billion years later, we would have seen nothing. The galaxies would have flown too far apart. The sky would have become empty. We would have thought that our galaxy is the entire universe. We would never have learned about the scale. So we are wildly lucky. We are witnesses to the era of giants. Just think about it. We live on a speck of dust orbiting a spark that flies in a fog that is part of a thread in a giant carpet. And we don't even see the edges of this carpet. But this carpet doesn't just hang there, it lives its own life. Astronomers noticed that the orientation of galaxies inside the wall is also not random. They rotate coherently. The axes of rotation of many galaxies, located millions of light-years apart, are aligned parallel to each other. It's as if all the spinning tops in a toy store suddenly started spinning at the same angle. This confirms once again, the wall is a single system. It is permeated by invisible force lines that dictate to the stars how to dance. And here we approach the shakiest moment of our story. Simulation theory. Yes, I know, it sounds like pop culture, the Matrix and all that. But listen to the arguments of serious people. If the universe is a computer program, it must have resource limitations. Any computer has a power limit. To save resources, programmers usually simplify distant backgrounds. In a video game, if you look at a mountain in the distance, it will be drawn worse than the stone under your feet. Maybe the cosmological principle, the idea that the universe is the same everywhere, is a way to save resources. Just copy and paste the same chunk of void 1,000,000 times. But the Hercules-Corona Borealis wall looks like a bug, like a rendering error, as if the procedural generation of the world glitched, and instead of a flat field, created a huge mountain of textures. Why did this happen? Maybe the server is located there? Or maybe the exit is there? That is a joke, of course. But there is a grain of truth in every joke. The presence of anomalies of this scale tells us that the system is not perfect. Only an artificial, simplified system is perfect. Reality is always full of roughness, and this wall is the biggest roughness of all. We try to stretch our smooth mathematical formulas over the universe, but the universe resists. It bulges out of them with these walls, these flows. Let's imagine we sent a probe there, a robot that can fly forever. What will it see when it gets close to the heart of the wall? It will see an ocean of light. Due to the monstrous concentration of matter, space there is filled with gas that glows in the X-ray spectrum. It is a hot environment, millions of degrees. Flying through the wall, our robot will record the death of galaxies. It will see huge spiral galaxies, like our Milky Way, fly into dense clusters and lose their gas. Their beautiful arms are ripped off by cosmic wind. They turn into bald, red, elliptical galaxies, dead balls of old stars. The wall is a meat grinder. It processes the beautiful, complex structure of spiral galaxies into a shapeless mass. It is a graveyard of beauty. But exactly from this chaos, perhaps, something new is born that we cannot yet understand. Now let's turn away from the horrors and look at the beauty. If we had eyes capable of seeing not only visible light, but also radio waves and gamma rays, the Hercules-Corona Borealis wall would take up half the sky. It would be the brightest object in the sky after the sun and the moon. Imagine, you go out at night, and instead of black emptiness above you hangs a giant shimmering arc. It glows violet, blue, gold. It would be a breathtaking sight. We are deprived of this sight only because of the limitations of our eyes. But our instruments give us back this vision. We build telescopes to see the invisible, and what we see makes us feel simultaneously insignificant and great. Insignificant because of the size. Great because we, apes from a planet on the outskirts, were able to realize this. By the way, about our place. Where exactly are we in relation to the wall? We are not inside it, thank God. We are in the so-called local sheet. It is a small, flat group of galaxies. And we are flying... No, not towards the wall. We are flying in the other direction. But the wall's gravity still reaches us. It's like a tide. The moon is far, but the ocean on Earth feels it. So the Milky Way feels the breath of Hercules. It is a weak influence, but it is there. Every atom in your body experiences a microscopic pull from this behemoth. You are connected to it by an invisible thread. And now remember the dark flow from the previous part. Some scientists try to link these two phenomena. Maybe the wall is not just an object, but a breakwater. Maybe it formed exactly there because the boundary of some cosmic current passes there. Imagine a river. If a stone sticks out in the middle of the river, a whirlpool forms behind it. Maybe our universe flows, and the wall is foam on the crest of a wave? This returns us to the theory that space-time is not an empty stage, but a liquid, a superfluid liquid. And in this liquid, there can be eddies, currents, and even tsunamis. The Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall is a frozen tsunami of galaxies. We are approaching the end of the second part of our dive. We analyzed the anatomy of the monster. We understood that it violates the laws of universe growth. We saw in it the features of a giant brain and traces of a cosmic catastrophe. But the most important question remains, a question we will touch upon in the finale. If there is a mountain, it means somewhere there must be a pit. If there is a place where there is too much matter, it means somewhere there must be a place where there is too little. Nature loves balance, and there is such a place. It is located in the southern hemisphere of the sky. It is the complete opposite of our wall. A giant, cold, dead void. The Eridanus Supervoid. Or, as journalists call it, the cold spot. That is exactly where we will go in the final part. We will try to connect these 2 points, the biggest wall and the biggest hole. And perhaps we will understand that they are parts of one whole. Parts of a giant mechanism that has been working for 14 billion years already. Get ready. In the third part, we will break not only physics, but also philosophy. We will ask questions to which it is scary to get answers. But for now, you need to digest the information about the wall. 10 billion years. 8 times exceeds the limit. Breaks the Big Bang Theory. We don't know where it came from, but it is there, and it is watching us. We looked at the biggest mountain in the universe. We saw the Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall, which breaks our understanding of physics with its incredible size and mass. But ancient philosophers said, as above, so below. Every action has a reaction. And if somewhere in the universe nature shoveled matter into a giant, impossible pile, then somewhere there must be a place from where it took this matter. If there is Everest, there must be the Mariana Trench, and such a place exists. Welcome to an astronomer's hell. Welcome to the Eridanus Supervoid. This is the complete opposite of our wall. If the wall is an overcrowded metropolis shining with the lights of trillions of stars, the Eridanus Supervoid is an icy desert. It is a hole in the fabric of creation. It is located in the southern hemisphere of the sky, in the constellation Eridanus. And its dimensions also boggle the mind, almost 2 billion light-years of emptiness. Just think about that. 2 billion years of light flying through absolute nothingness. There are almost no galaxies there, almost no stars. There isn't even ordinary cosmic dust. It is a vacuum inside a vacuum. Scientists didn't find this place immediately. First, they discovered the so-called cold spot on the map of cosmic microwave background radiation. Remember we said the universe is uniformly warm? Well, in this spot, it is anomalously cold, as if someone applied ice to the fevered forehead of the cosmos. For a long time, no one could understand why. Instrument errors? Dust in our galaxy? But then, the terrible truth came out. This spot is cold because there is nothing there. Light, flying through this void, loses energy. It gets tired. It has nothing to grab onto, nothing to reflect off. It is a dead zone. And now try to connect these two facts in one head. On one side of the sky, we have the Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall, an object where there is too much matter. On the other side, the Eridanus Supervoid, where there is critically little matter. Both these objects violate the cosmological principle. Both are too huge to exist, according to the Standard Model of the Big Bang. Coincidence? Astrophysicists don't think so. More and more scientists are leaning towards the idea that these two monsters are links in the same chain, traces of the same event. An event that happened before the beginning of our time. The boldest and most frightening theory states, our universe is not alone. We live in a multiverse. Imagine our universe is a giant soap bubble floating in an infinite ocean of other such bubbles. Sometimes these bubbles collide. What happens when two giant balls crash into each other? A catastrophe occurs at the point of impact. On one side, the bubble wall crumples, compresses. Matter is compressed by the monstrous force of the impact. That is exactly how the Hercules-Corona Borealis Great Wall could have been born. It is a bruise. It is a hematoma on the body of our universe left after a collision with another world. And what happens on the other side? On the other side, the bubble might bulge out, stretch, or even crack. And emptiness forms there, the Eridanus Supervoid. It is a dent. If this theory is correct, then we are living inside a crime scene. We see the evidence. The wall and the void are fingerprints of another world that touched us billions of years ago. This completely changes our self-awareness. We are no longer a closed system. We are not a lonely island. We are part of a huge, churning archipelago where worlds are born, collide, and die. But there is another point of view, even more uncomfortable. Simulation theory, which we mentioned in passing. If the universe is a digital model, then the wall and the void are bugs, code errors. Imagine the programmer who created this world ran out of RAM. In one place, textures overlapped, creating a pileup of galaxies, the wall. And in another place, textures simply didn't load. An empty black screen remained, the void, the cold spot. We look at these anomalies and try to come up with complex physical theories, gravity, dark energy. But actually, we are just looking at dead pixels. It sounds like science fiction, but think about this. The laws of physics in our universe are tuned too perfectly. If you change the force of gravity by 1/1,000,000%, stars won't light up. If you change the mass of an electron, atoms will fall apart. We live in a world that seems specially tweaked for the existence of an observer. But giant glitches like the Great Wall show us that this tuning is not absolute, that the system can fail. And perhaps these glitches are our only chance to look behind the scenes, to understand how the mechanism really works. What does this mean for us, simple people who get up for work in the morning and drink coffee? What do we care about holes in space billions of years wide? It matters directly. It is a question of our origin and our future. The Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall is a reminder that we are children of chaos. We are used to thinking that nature strives for order, for harmony. But the cosmos tells us the opposite. Nature strives for extremes. It creates unthinkable clusters and unthinkable voids. And we, life, emerged somewhere in the middle, in a thin layer between absolute light and absolute darkness. We are an exception to the rules, a statistical error. The Great Wall will disappear soon. In cosmic timescales, of course. Dark energy will tear it apart. Galaxies will fly away. The Eridanus void will become even bigger. The entire universe will turn into one continuous cold void. This is the inevitable finale. Heat death. But until that happens, we have a chance. A chance to understand. We are the universe's only way to know itself. Atoms born in the cores of dying stars gathered together to create a brain that now looks through a telescope at its ancestors. The Hercules-Corona Borealis Wall stands there as a monument to our ignorance. Every time we think we understand everything, the cosmos throws us a new riddle. We thought the Earth was flat. The cosmos showed us a sphere. We thought the sun was the center of the world. The cosmos showed us a galaxy. We thought the universe was uniform. The cosmos threw this wall in our face. And that is beautiful, because it means the adventure is not over. Physics textbooks will have to be rewritten more than once. Perhaps our descendants will find a way to use the energy of such structures. Perhaps they will learn to travel through wormholes that, according to some theorists, might hide in the depths of the supervoid. Or maybe we will find a way to send a signal to that other universe that left us this bruise, to say, hello, we are here, we survived the impact. But now, tonight, when you go to sleep, just remember this. Above your head, through the roof of your house, through the atmosphere, in the bottomless blackness hangs an object whose light took 10 billion years to reach us. It is so huge that against its background, our galaxy is smaller than an atom against a skyscraper. It violates laws. It scares scientists. But it exists, and we exist. And the fact that we, small carbon creatures on a wet rock, were able to see and measure it is perhaps the greatest miracle in this entire story. A human is not just dust. A human is the eyes of the universe. And as long as these eyes are open, as long as we continue to ask questions, the universe will reveal its secrets to us. Even scary ones like the Great Wall or the cold spot. We started this video with the question, what is the cosmos hiding? The answer turned out to be more complicated than we thought. It hides structures that shouldn't exist. But it is exactly such impossible things that move science forward. If you liked breaking your brain with me, if you felt this sacred awe before the abyss, don't forget to hit like. It helps our small channel survive in the YouTube algorithms, which are sometimes as ruthless as the laws of astrophysics. And if you want to know more about that very place where the universe died, about the Eridanus Supervoid, and why some consider it an entrance to hell, then you definitely need to watch this video. It is on the screen right now. There we analyze the void in even more detail. Click it. And remember, the cosmos is closer than it seems. See you